there's a man from Ireland that's been making me wait for way too long, and I still got one dude on my mind. Conor McGregor, get your candy ass back to the octagon. We got some unfinished business, boys. God bless. I'll see you at the top.
Nobody's had to feel like they've waited longer than me. I've been ready to fight since right after The Ultimate Fighter, but I can tell you the fight is happening.
So, Luke, what do you think about Michael Chandler turning up on WWE Raw and just kind of like screaming into a microphone and with the WrestleMania sign behind him? Is this fight going to happen at WrestleMania? Is it going to be a scripted fight between Chandler and McGregor?
Maybe we might see Chandler wrestle someone. Because he hasn't so far. Yeah. So maybe that's his angle. He's like, I'm going to go back to my...
That's his angle. Kurt Angle.
What are you going to say?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I saw the clips on Twitter.
Yeah.
And that is the exciting part of Michael Chandler that we all like.
I mean, is it?
Well, that's
we like his fights.
We like his fights, but it's like he's being that character, which he did. Yeah, he did after the Tony win. Everyone loved that. The whole "see you at the top." Yeah, and that's his catchphrase. Very exciting, and he was kind of what we needed in the UFC for a long time that we didn't have. Someone to come in and just fuck the game plan and just fight like he's gonna die after the match anyway. He just goes in there 100% and is like, if you don't win.
They have to just be like, Mike, remember, you don't actually have to die.
Yeah,
like there's
but it's like if you don't go in there and get finished or finish,
yeah, somebody's gonna kill your whole family.
Yeah, we'll hurt you. But we did need that. And he kind of gave that injection into lightweight. He was that really exciting guy who would fight beyond his limits and put on a show. But we haven't had the show for such a long time. And it's kind of like, it's such a shame that Michael Chandler, as the star that he became, is now dwindling. Is it smart to be waiting for this McGregor fight for so long?
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate red panty night.
How red are they? I think they're almost brown nowadays. Yeah. You know, are they...
They've been washed quite a few times now, and it's
and like Ilya Topuria is like, McGregor, if you got any balls, and like no one wants to see that. Like, I want Ilya to do his own thing. Like, when McGregor's 40, are people going to be like, McGregor, come out of retirement and fight?
yeah, probably. No, it is such a shame because you're right. He did have that explosion onto the scene, and then he's calling out McGregor. I understand it. He's at the end of his career. He's probably desperate for one final large payday. But when's the last time he fought?
And that's the thing. He was a really active guy. He come in and broke up that lightweight division where we had that round robin of the three guys. Yeah. And he was kind of someone to put in there.
It's interesting, though, that he's clearly chosen Red Panty Night and the McGregor fight over actively trying to fight for a title again. With guys like Donald Cerrone coming out recently and saying, oh, I was only paid $200K to fight McGregor. What is his actual, what's Michael Chandler's pay actually going to be by the time he actually fights McGregor as well? And when you do look at McGregor's pay, actually, it's not like astronomical. When you go through those documents that released fighter pay, it's not like McGregor is getting like tens of millions of dollars. It's under 10. So it's not like astronomical. And you do wonder whether or not someone like Chandler is, what's he actually going to get paid to fight someone like McGregor?
It must be people really still believe in McGregor's selling power. I don't think McGregor's selling power is the same, especially to the UFC audience, as it was.
Yeah, I mean, it might be, to be fair to him. He's just like in this huge movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and stuff like that. And maybe he's, again, getting reintroduced to people that maybe don't know McGregor. They watch him being a fucking maniac in Roadhouse. And they go, who the fuck is this guy?
Knox.
Where does he come from? Yeah, exactly. And they go, oh shit, he's an actual fighter as well. I'm going to watch his next fight. The avenues into fighting is really weird, isn't it? People find different routes in. So the selling power still might be there. And I also think like a lot of people would be interested to see McGregor fight again, coming back from a snapped leg. I don't know, how much was he really hurt in the losses to Dustin Poirier, or do people just still want to see him fight, whether he's fighting Diego Sanchez? I wonder how much Diego Sanchez fight would have sold. Well, if they made that,
that would have been awful. The way that Diego looked at the end of the UFC would have just been so bad. But no, a lot of the thing was the whole Mystic Mac, wasn't it? It was the mysticism around him that there's no one he can't beat. Yeah. And he's got this death touch. Yeah. And it's like, as soon as he got Like, yeah, we saw him finish, but as soon as he got knocked out, it's like, he's human.
Do you think Michael Chandler should move on from this?
Well, I think he should have moved on a while ago.
Yeah.
Because he could still be up there mixing it with those guys.
Benoit?
But he could, imagine him versus Benoit. I think Poirier's a good fight with Benoit, but imagine the craziness that you could have put together with those. Or maybe even a step up for Benoit first and then do the Poirier fight. But there was so many matchups you could make with Chandler.
You could sprinkle him in there anywhere.
Literally anywhere. Yeah. Because he's like that, not a Robbie Lawler, but he's like that guy who will give 110%.
Yeah. And I also think, though, as well, he is desperately holding out for the McGregor fight because he thinks that he will just annihilate him as well. And what does that say about you when you have a win over Conor McGregor? What did it do for Dustin Poirier? Like, he's in these super fights all the time. He's in the BMF. Like, he's kind of doing basically what he wants to do now, really.
I saw it as a layout fight for McGregor, the Cerrone one. But he didn't get anything after that, did he? He got
Cerrone.
He got paid the same, and he got pushed back down onto just fighting whoever unranks and getting finished by them as well.
Ultimately, the conversation just comes back to the fact that, like, he is this really incredible talent at the end of his career, and it's just such a shame that you have someone like that you can put in against anyone. They don't have to be a big star at all, but Michael Chandler is at that point now where I think that he could go in, have great fights with anyone, and he's severely wasting the end of his career. I think he's wasting his time absolutely by chasing a McGregor that might not even return. You know, you can have all these assurances like, oh, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But the reality of it is Dana White promises stuff over and over again. Guess what happened? We got Pereira versus Jamal, like, at 300. Honestly, I mean, we could peer off into that direction really easily, but like, it should have been McGregor Chandler, because ultimately, like, I know it's not a title fight, but it's a super fight, and a McGregor Chandler fight you could sell like that.
If you want 300 to be your biggest show, it's like, this is a landmark event. Your UFC 300, we've got this far and we're still going. You have your biggest guys in there. We don't really have that at the moment. I know people would have been mad about the title fights, but that's just the precedent the UFC have set. Like, we have to have title fights on pay-per-views. We've done it before without them. Like, we had Leon Nate Diaz. It was still a great fight. Yeah. It wasn't maybe the fireworks that other fights could be, but it doesn't matter.
It has a great fucking moment to look back on.
We had the BMF. Yeah. We've all talked about BMF loads. Not really a belt, but it sort of is. Yeah. And we've had those at a headline.
Do you think he was taken out of it, or McGregor was like, nah, I want to fight in July?
It's so difficult to know because there's all this discussion of who is telling the truth, who's lying. Dana's saying McGregor really wants to fight. McGregor's supporting that, saying they're keeping me from my craft, or I've been ready for ages. I've been healed for such a long time. Yeah. Dana's saying, oh, he's recovering from the shin bone still. And it's like, well, he's not. He's been... So it's like, what is going on? Why wasn't this at 300? Because everyone...
Do you think it is as fucking petty as Dana White going, you're going to fight at 300? And McGregor's like, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. I'm going to dictate what I want to do. And if I want to fight at 300, I'll fight at 300. But actually, I want to fight International Fight Week. He doesn't like being told what to do anymore.
Yeah, I think he got to a size, especially with the Floyd fight, where he transcends his own medium, goes over to boxing, and has like one of the biggest pay-per-views ever. I think once that happened, he always had a massive ego, but once that happened, it was like, oh, I'm beyond the UFC. It's McGregor and the UFC. It's not he's the UFC's employee. And there's definitely some of that gets in the way. I'm 100% sure. But some things that have been iterated amongst the community is that the UFC are purposely trying to dwindle their stars and their star power,
so they can be the Titan force.
Yeah, they could. Yeah. You say, oh, the UFC rather than Conor McGregor or a Diaz or whoever, but it goes hand in hand with their scheduling about reducing star power. Is that if they have it every weekend like the NFL, then you kind of get that people used to that idea. Yeah, that the UFC's here for you every week. You can come watch amazing fights. Doesn't matter who they are. It's kind of mental
though, because like they're in the NFL and the fucking Premier League, there's like loads of fucking different teams with like loads of different players. So you're always going to have the star of one team on at any weekend. You're always going to have a star every week. But with this, you just don't, from week to week to week, you don't have stars, do you? You just have a bunch of fighters that haven't been really given the opportunity to become a star. So it's like, okay, so why am I being invested in this? Yes, you can be a fan of just watching fights. Turning on the TV, oh, fights are happening. This is cool. I love a good fucking big knockout, regardless of who or why. But ultimately, like, to keep me coming back. Like, I need to go, oh yeah, I watched this guy and he did this and he did that. And wow, now he's fighting this guy who's also done this and that. And he's, knocked out, this guy in front of like 40,000 people in this arena and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I just think that story and narrative play a huge part for people that do want a bit more than just the fighting. Yeah, I mean, it might entirely just be down to the fact that, like, the UFC don't want to pay him the amount of money that he wants to be paid, especially now where you got Francis. He's just absolutely fucking smashing it with Riyadh season, isn't he? He's just like, I'm going to get fucking 100 mil here, 100 mil here, we're going to have 100 mil here, and he's just having a fucking blast. And then you got old poor McGregor with his fucking gammy leg go like, yeah, but come on, guys.
Yeah. Do you still think 3 people are dying to make his shoes still, or it's just like actually he's just down Clark's? He's like, I need the money. Exactly. No, but that's the thing. Is like the UFC will pay what they want to pay. They don't need you, but it seems and like McGregor's been this figure who's in and out of the sport so like infrequently. It's kind of like you're not on the tip of everyone's tongue of like when they want to see him fight anymore.
Is it life-changing money for Michael Chandler as well? In the last year and a half when he's not been competing, where he could have fought maybe 3 or 4 times and earned the money on his contract that he's currently on, or just holding out for McGregor to hope for like a little bit more?
Yeah, I personally, I would agree with the sentiment that he should have kept fighting because this fight would have been there anyway. And like McGregor's not ranked, he's just a name nowadays. So no matter where Chandler kind of ended up, he could have still been the personality that he is and still got thrown in there.
He seems to be one of those fighters that win or loss, he kind of just like, it doesn't really hurt him. Ultimately, he could have lost 5 more times. And considering McGregor wanted to fight Diego Sanchez, it would have been better for Michael Chandler to lose 5 times because McGregor probably been like, I will definitely win this.
That's the thing as well. It's like this whole, back from the tough stuff when he's talking about weights and doing 185 and stuff, and Chandler's like jumping through these hoops of like desperate for this fight. I'll do whatever, man. And like, I get because he's game and he's a fighter, but he's also kind of like just giving in to the McGregor star power, which I don't know if it deserves the same respect as it once did.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I just feel like Chandler has, although he's been led astray a little bit and is maybe being overpromised certain things, but I think as we saw with someone like Colby, doesn't do you any good. I know Colby was in a championship level fight, but it doesn't do you any good to be away for that long.
Really held out and gave the worst performance of his career.
Yeah, he just walked around for 5 rounds, just getting the shit beaten out of him. Could you imagine if we get into the octagon and like Michael Chandler and Conor just like stare at each other in a sparring match for 5 rounds? Just be like too scared to engage, or like I broke my foot in the first 5 seconds, or it would just be horrendous because we know those guys to have like an incredible first round.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what we want. We don't want 2 old guys who have waited too long for a performance, for a matchup that doesn't have a large investment other than we know like how exciting they are.
Astronomically slower than they were. Like,
and they're at 185 and they gas out in like 2 minutes. It's just ridiculous.
How do you think Chandler currently sits with like the fan base as well for doing what he's doing?
I think he's missed. I think some real cynical people will be like, oh, you fucked up. You've wasted your time, like some people have said. That's the thing. It's up to the UFC to offer him fights. Are they saying, no, the McGregor fight coming in, don't worry, wait? But really, they're kind of just manipulating him into not fighting for that one. I don't know, but I think Chandler is missed, and I think a lot of people will be negative towards him until he fights again. Yeah.
Where is he in the fucking rankings as well, in the lightweight?
He's got to be around like
has he slipped
7, 9
purely for inactivity, do you reckon?
Probably.
Let's have a quick look as well.
He's 5th. He's number 5.
That's the thing. If you can just perpetually sit at number 5 based upon your portfolio of work and go, okay, I'm number 5. I can sit out for this. I'm not moving anywhere on the rankings. So in a couple of fights, even if the McGregor fight happens, I can still maybe fight for a title. I go on a winning streak. So yeah, maybe that's what he's thinking. He's just like, do you know what? Like the UFC value me clearly quite highly. The fact that I'm not moving on this ladder up and down. If people were fighting and he was just going,
you might feel the need, the urge. You'd be like,
oh shit, like, but they just don't do that because they know that they have to have those stars at the top of the ladder. Let's be honest, why the fuck is Poirier still there? What's his record been in the last, in the lightweight division?
Pretty much, he beats most people.
Like who?
He beat McGregor.
Yeah.
No. Who's he beaten?
That's what
he beat Chandler.
He beat Chandler.
Oh, no, lost to Oliveira and then to Just no, did he beat someone? I can't even fucking
Don't know.
remember.
Don't know because these things happened like fucking 5 years ago. I can't remember this shit. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, if they're still willing to keep those guys at the top, like, what's the point in the McGregor fight now? You just fight for a title is way more engaging than fighting an old McGregor.
But then
who might just come out looking like fucking Tim Sylvia with one leg the opposite way.
But then again, if you think McGregor is way past it and you fight like you do when you're Michael Chandler, maybe he thinks, I'm going to go out there and starch him. And if I'm one of the few people that have finished McGregor ever, that does numbers for me when I retire. And then he can go into his WWE and be a character there. And
yeah,
he's
that's
like,
true.
And do all that stuff. And it's like, who hasn't he thought that hasn't been a big fight? He's not going to fight a Dariush. He's not going to fight a Sarukian. He's not there to be a stepping stone. He's there to be a star. But there seems to be this outcry of when you make a name for yourself or you become a champion, there's this outcry to get beyond the UFC. And it's like, it's interesting, like, what's going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing that is potentially manipulative or controlling from the UFC.
What's an example of that then? So like Sean O'Malley wanting to fight.
Of course, he wanted to fight Gervonta. He wants Ryan Garcia's now chirping him, saying, I'm going to come into MMA and destroy you, which makes sense because then that he can be included in the UFC. But before that, he was calling out Gervonta Davis, saying he'd beat him in a boxing match and stuff. Everyone calling out Canelo, because they are near his weight, and it's like, you just can't go and fight Canelo though. But like Taporia recently, he's calling out everyone and anyone to do a champ fight. He's now calling out Canelo himself, calling out McGregor, calling out Islam, and it's like everyone's trying to replicate the McGregor thing, and it never will. It's clearly 1 in a million that someone like that comes along. What's going on that is making people feel like they can't defend their divisions, they can't respect the rankings?
Yeah.
Why is it that as soon as you become champion, it's like, okay, champ next?
Well, I think it's just the examples of what like other guys have done, isn't it? Like McGregor and now Francis as well. When you see that, oh, that is possible, and you know, my whole life I have dreamed of, you know, these incredible, fantastical achievements, and I've actually done them. Who says now that I can't be a McGregor, I can't be a Francis? And I think it's really important for fighters and athletes in general to consistently shift the goalposts. Otherwise, you're going to have guys that do ultimately stall at the top there. Guys like Johnny Hendricks, who had an incredible fucking run to the belt as well, lost that close decision to Georges St. Pierre. Finally got to the top with a win over Robbie Lawler. And then guess what happened? Just like, right, fucking done it now. I have no other goals here. And he has had, like a lot of champions, a drastic fall from grace where he was just, you know, losing to people in bare knuckle boxing that you've never heard of. And I do think like it is super important for those guys to have those goals. But the fact that the UFC do not have anything in place for them to go, okay, now that you are the champion, these are the things that we can put in place for you to get excited about and for you to want to pursue, rather than wanting to pursue something outside of the UFC. I know Francis did want to do this super fight with Tyson with the UFC, but the very fact that that just did not happen, maybe a lack of like vision and ambition from the UFC themselves. And I've said this multiple times before, but I do think we're in the era of the UFC where they don't have to do anything anymore. They don't have to actively chase after these things. I know they're going after a younger generation with the Aiden Rosses and the fucking Sneakos now coming to these events, and Dana go, you know, fucking these streamers are the future of marketing and getting your product out there and stuff. And maybe I'm completely and utterly like not the right demographic anymore, but like it's just always goes back to the fact of like what the UFC actually doing to stay relevant, that's exciting, that's explosive, that you go, I need to fucking watch this shit. I need to watch this Apex card. And I think we are just in that era of like the UFC just, they're there, they exist, and they are the top. They will never be unseated. There's no fucking challenges from Showtime. There's no challenges from HBO. There's no challenges from, you know, millionaires who are pumping money into a random promotion. Apart from PFL, let's see how that goes for them. So far, looks like Francis is going to fucking fight
Ferreira. Yeah. Isn't that mad that the PFL buy Bellator and all their fighters get wiped out? Well, apart from Bader.
Yeah.
But he is the easiest fight in the division.
He is the easiest fight in the division.
Like you said, they don't have to do anything, but it's sad to see that, because as fans, we're always like a champion. We always feel like we're craving something more. It's like, yeah, we've seen it. We want to see what's next. And there's not that level. It's like these champions feel like they have to transcend themselves or where they're fighting to break through to that next barrier. It's like we see with Topuria at the Bernabeu, like how amazing that was and that big celebration they had of him. They should expose their fighters. It very much seems like when you're a UFC champion, you're just part of the UFC.
And considering they're owned by an entertainment entity now, an Endeavor as well, you would have thought, honestly, when Endeavor bought the UFC, I was like, we are going to see these motherfuckers everywhere now. We're going to see like this guy on this TV show, or we're going to have more crossover things with like the WWE, especially when TKO formed as well. You know, you should be seeing a lot more of that. But again, it's so fucking weird that it's Michael Chandler out of fucking everyone currently going on a WWE show who's been given airtime. They're like, give him the fucking microphone, let him cut a promo on a fucking beef that is like 2 years old. What the fuck are we doing here? Why have they done that?
A lot of people will be watching that being like,
who the fuck is this guy?
He's fighting McGregor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
You know? I think people think that we're like a fucking £1 million company.
Yeah, we're only like some Jeff Bezos
Yeah,
figure.
exactly.
And it's just you.
Yeah, it's just me sat behind this.
And Jason.
And Jason.
Making this content on a weekly basis, we are a small team and we put a lot of effort and we put a lot of time into these. So if you do want to support us, it really does help, and it makes all this worth it, knowing that people really love the content, they respect it, and they see how hard we're working.
And ultimately, half of that just goes back into my pocket as well. So
Spent on
booze
hookers
and
and gack.
tits, yeah.
Yeah.